What's going on, people? It's your boy Tone, back with another video. Today, we got the horrors of Unit 731. Now, this actually began with doing the oversimplified reactions, and it made a point on the 731 place in Japan. And ever since then, I've been kind of stuck on trying to figure out what's going on with it. So, one of my subscribers requested this video, so we're going to react to it together, so we can see what's really going on, man. I've heard some things, but we're going to find out for ourselves. Let's go.
Today, we're going to talk about the darker aspects of war. Yes, war is dark enough in itself,
Right.
but as you'll know from some of our other shows, many despicable things happen in a war behind what we might call closed doors. We only need to look at the Nazi doctor, Josef Mengele, who conducted experiments on people that make your stomach churn. We might also look at the Nazi death marches, the massacres, the genocides, the torture of prisoners, and prisoners literally being worked to death. These things all happened during the Second World War, as did biological warfare and the testing of deadly agents on those captured by certain militaries. But today we'll focus on just one matter of total depravity during that war, in this episode of the Infographic Show, the horror of Unit 731. Unit 731 was the brainchild of the Imperial Japanese Army during World War II. It was a biological and chemical warfare research unit that conducted experiments on prisoners with the aim of developing deadly weapons.
All right, so before we begin, you guys, I'm giving you guys a heads up. This might get a little crazy, even though it's cartoonish style. It still might get a little crazy. So heads up, warning, you know what I'm saying? Before we continue, let's go.
It's written that at its base in China, remember the Japanese were at war with China, around 3,000 men, women, and children were tested on. Most of these, we are told, were Chinese, but some of them were from the Allied nations, the Soviet Union, Korea, and Mongolia. The unit lasted until the end of the war in 1945, and it's written it had ample funding from the Japanese government. Okay, so this unit was developing dastardly weapons, and it needed to test those weapons on people first. But other tests were also done, related to trying to
So it's not like it was a standalone scientist doing all these experiments. The government was standing behind it, financially investing in it. That's an interesting fact right there, man. Think about that, man. That's deep. Let's go.
understand what the human body could endure. That way, the Japanese military might better understand what its own soldiers could go through. The cold. One of the many things soldiers had to put up with during the war was cold, and cold did kill a lot of people.
Yeah.
At Unit 731, they wanted to understand just how cold someone could get and still survive. The website unit731.org tells us some human test subjects were taken outside during the harsh winter until their limbs froze off for the doctors to experiment how best to treat frostbite. The New York Times, which had testimonies from people who had seen the horrors of this unit, wrote that these people would be taken outside and guards would throw water on them until they saw the victim had frostbite. Sometimes, wrote the newspaper, the guards would hit the arm of the prisoner with a stick, and if he heard something like a wood against wood sound, he knew the arm was totally frozen. What happened next is the doctors would use various methods to try and unfreeze the arm or other body part. Sometimes the prisoner would be left alone to unfreeze, sometimes warm water would be thrown on him or her, and sometimes much warmer water. The Japanese doctors, according to the Times, concluded that the water over 100 degrees Fahrenheit, but never more than 122 degrees Fahrenheit, worked the best. Vivisection. The Japanese military.
Oh my goodness, man. And we all know there's like no rules in war. We all know, we get that part. And we all know there's dark sides to pretty much every civilization, especially throughout history. But damn, taking somebody outside in the cold just to see at what time they freeze, bringing them back in if they survive, and throwing water on them. I mean, that's just crazy. That's just, man. Let's keep it going, dog. But man, that's crazy.
For more than 122 degrees Fahrenheit worked the best. Vivisection. The Japanese military also wanted to know how best to treat diseases and injuries, but we're told that to do this they would often use live prisoners to operate on. It's said that some of these prisoners would be deliberately given a disease, and then the doctors would open up the body of the patient without any kind of anesthesia. They wanted to look at the effects of the disease before the body began decomposing, and that's why they kept the subjects alive.
Oh my God, bro. That's even though it's a cartoon, we can all kind of picture that, right? Being alive and well, or not well. I guess they gave you diseases on purpose, but just being alive and being cut open while you're still alive, like that is almost on some horror movie type stuff going on. But this really happened. This really happened. Let's go.
Before the body began decomposing, and that's why they kept the subjects alive. These people were called Marutas or logs. The New York Times, with testimony from a former surgeon, said they just wanted to know what had happened inside. That man told the Times, "I cut him open from chest to the stomach, and he screamed terribly, and his face was all twisted in agony. He made this unimaginable sound. He was screaming so horribly, but then he finally stopped." This was all in a day's work for the surgeons, but it really left an impression on me because it was my first time testing pathogens.
All in a day's work. So after a certain amount of people you're operating on, you just become numb to it as a doctor. I wonder if the doctors were forced to do that or were they voluntarily there? But anyway, so after so many people, you become normalized to that, right? So I wonder if like after leaving this place, were they haunted by like the things that they saw and the things that they did? Haunted, bro. What kind of nightmares you having?
One of the major experiments at Unit 731 was to test how certain pathogens, including cholera or anthrax, would affect a number of people if they were exposed to the pathogens. They didn't just do this inside the camp, but also did what they called field testing. This was done by dropping the pathogens on small communities in China. They wanted to see if they could cause an outbreak of disease. We're told some of these experiments were successful, so the Japanese then had the idea to carry these pathogens to the United States in what were called balloon bombs. It's written that the Japanese did send about 200 balloons to the US, but these failed for the most part, only leading to the death of 7 people.
And that's even crazy, right? So that can be applied today. I mean, we can't talk about, but from what we've learned so far, it came from that kind of location. The whatever. It came from that kind of location, and folks are saying it's man-made. And if all that ties together, people are still messing around trying to create stuff and doing these tests to this day. I mean, look what that did to us. That was crazy. Did to the world, bro. Just because it leaked out in one place and look how far it spread. Let's keep it going, man. Let's keep it going.
Also had a plan to drop plague-infected fleas on San Diego by using kamikaze pilots, testing weapons. The Japanese also wanted to test weapons that they could use on the battlefield, and this included regular weapons but also toxic gases. To do this, prisoners would be taken out to a field and tied to a spot with a stake. The soldiers would then start testing, which sometimes just meant shooting guns at the target, and other times throwing grenades at certain distances to see how effective they were. The bodies of the victims would then be analyzed, so the Japanese knew exactly what damage their weapons could do. We're told that in one experiment, gas was fired at the tied-up prisoners, but the wind changed direction, and it sent the Japanese soldiers running. It's also said that the soldiers would occasionally test out their flamethrowers on the prisoners. The pressure chamber and spinning. While Japanese people who had worked in the camp later recalled how many parts of prisoners could be seen in jars all over the camp, it's not always known how these people died.
Literally a horror movie. The scariest movie we've been watching growing up is reality for some people overseas in this situation, in this location. Reality.
Perhaps one of the worst deaths was the pressure chamber. We're told that prisoners would be placed inside a pressure chamber, sometimes alongside another prisoner, and the pressure would be turned up until basically the prisoner's eyes popped and they eventually died. If that wasn't horrific enough, other prisoners would literally be spun to death so that the military could test centrifugal forces. Operations. The Japanese also wanted to have better surgeons, and those surgeons needed subjects to work on. One report we found tells us how one subject was given an appendectomy. After that, his arm was removed, and after that, he received a tracheotomy. This all took about 90 minutes, and when the doctors were done, they just killed that patient. The man who did these surgeries was, at the time, a student doctor. He told the media that he had no idea what to expect when he was told he was going to China to practice surgeries. Spreading syphilis. This is the testimony from a worker at Unit 731. Infection of venereal disease by injection was abandoned, and the researchers started forcing the prisoners into sexual acts with each other. It's said that if the pair refused, they would be shot. At other times, children were infected with the disease. The reason this happened was so those infected prisoners could be vivisected at various stages of the disease, and the doctors at the camp could better understand how it affected a person's organs during that stage of the infection. Forced pregnancy. It's said that female prisoners would be made pregnant by force so that the doctors could understand if the disease was passed to the child. They also wanted to know what damage a disease may have caused the woman's reproductive organs during pregnancy. It's said that guards would just take women and do this, even to those already injured from other experiments. While many children were thought to have been born in the camp, it's said that none survived. One former soldier said this sometime later. Of course, there were experiments on children, but probably their fathers were spies.
That doesn't make any sense. So that justifies you doing the things that y'all did? That doesn't even sound like a realistic way of, like, that doesn't even make any sense. Let's just do this because, you know, probably their father was spies, so it's okay. Man, I didn't know any of this stuff. I didn't know this place existed until Oversimplified covered it, bro. But now we are here, and we're learning, man. Let's get back to it.
For a long time, this unit was not talked about, but The Guardian reported in 2018 that Japan released lots of information from its national archives relating to Unit 731. Prior to this, much of what we knew was only based on testimonies. No one has denied what we've talked about today did not happen, but there are more reports that tell us smaller experiments also happened. These included people being exposed to dangerous levels of radiation, being injected with the blood from animals, being injected with seawater, and also being burned alive. It's said during the war the Americans knew about the camp, and after they granted immunity to the physicians of Unit 731 if they shared all their findings with the US military, as some of those findings might be useful, and the US didn't want the Soviets getting hold of the research. We'll leave you with a comment made by a former Unit 731 worker.
Whoa. So we was in on it too? Hold on, run that back. I'm sorry. I gotta.
U.S. military immunity to the physicians of Unit 731 if they shared all their findings with the U.S. military, as some of those findings might be useful, and the U.S. didn't want the Soviets getting hold of the research. We'll leave you with a comment made by a former Unit 731 worker when he was contacted some years later. I don't want to think about Unit 731. 50 years have passed since the war. Please let me remain silent. Do you think anything like this could happen again?
We always understood there was a dark side to war. We always understood there were people in place who have to do the dirty work so we as civilians can, I guess, live our normal lives, and we have to respect that. But here, these experiments and these testimonies from the I guess it was a scientist and one of the guards or two of the guards, bro, like, this is terrible, bro. Especially with when you involve the kids in there. I mean, any human being getting experimented on is absolutely crazy. But when you involve the kids in there and babies and things like that, it's just disgusting, man. To be honest with you, man, it's kind of the underbelly of the human race. I would say the dark side to the human race. There are people out here who can do these things and not blink an eye. They do exist. They are real, and they're probably right across the street from where you at right now. You know what I mean? So we just never know. But that's crazy. The question at the end: Do I think this can happen again? To be honest, absolutely. If something happens, we go back to World War III, or something happens, we have a civil war, which 10 years ago it will be laughed at, but you ask somebody today, could you think it's possible for us to have a civil war? I think absolutely, bro. Especially with all the political stuff going on between the blue and the red, and how America was so divided over the last couple of years. Absolutely, I could absolutely see a civil war, and that would be just the beginning. Once people see that America has weakened, they'll try to attack. They'll try to take advantage. They'll try to take over. Why wouldn't they, right? So absolutely, I can see this happening again. But we just have to hope. We just have to hope that there's more good people out here than there are bad, and keep it moving forward. Shout out to all my subscribers who are recommending all this good content. I see you guys comment down below. Let me know if you like this video by smashing that like button, and let's keep it going. You guys be safe out there. Take it easy. And until next time, peace.
If I should die at a young age, I thank the Lord for giving me a break. If I should die at a young age, I thank the Lord for giving me a break. Cause I'll probably live forever, ever, probably live forever, ever, probably live forever, ever, I'll probably live